speaker. This is my third year here, and a lot of interesting things have happened since we've been coming, and I had no idea that this would be one of them, so I'm really excited about this. When we were on our way riding down here, getting to know some ladies a little better who I know them well, but we were getting really personal in the car, and I was sharing some stuff about me with them, and I was talking about Ron. And then I was telling them, how I thought Ron was lying. I had to sit in his office one time. This was about 6 years ago, and he said, I was a real angry person. I think Judge May had a desire for me to stop using, and I was very upset. And Ron was there, and I said, anyway, are you an addict? And he said, yeah, I'm an addict. And I was like, sure. Then his wife was all posed on this beautiful wedding picture, and I said, and she's one too, right? And he said, yeah. So I never believed that until, I kept coming back, and he was telling the truth. And he reminds me regularly of how it was for me, and that's really a good thing. And it's really a good thing for me also to have the things happen to me in my life and know that someone really knows. I mean, you guys know me, and I hug you, and I get to know you, but this is somebody who saw me with the jail jumpsuit on, who had to check me even a couple of times. I was very angry, and knowing Ron being the kind of person that he is, I know that he is pleased to have a part in knowing, how that was. And so I've seen Ron come around ever since I've been around, and to work in the field and then to actually be in the recovery environment was something that was always extremely interesting to me. I was checking him out for a long time because I didn't believe that he was really one of us. And I finally got to the point where I did believe it, but to just see him continue to come around, to go through things and keep coming back and not use no matter what, has certainly been an inspiration to me. And it's really a key thing that I really cling to. You never know who's watching you. You never know who's watching you, so how we're living really has an impact on people that we have the faintest idea of. And so I'm honored to have the opportunity to invite someone from my hometown, Kalamazoo, Michigan. I would like to introduce to some and present to others Ron S. from Kalamazoo.
Hi family, I'm Ron and I'm an addict. I'm grateful to have the chance to share with you this evening. I promised Sharita I would leave her nameless, but now I'm not quite so certain I can. I'd like to talk first a little bit about my connection with your area. And I was sitting down at dinner talking with some of your members and realized that I made first contact with someone in this area about 10 years ago when I met Jennifer when she was in college. And it wasn't until several years after that I actually came down to Elkhart for meetings. And you can truly be commended for the level of recovery at your meetings, and it's a meeting that I look forward to all summer long to come down and ride to on my bike and with my wife. And we've enjoyed our experiences very much at the North Central area, and particularly the Elkhart meeting. I was a little bit concerned, though, about the change in format for the meeting. I understand we won't be able to go to Shoney's and have the salad bar tore down in the middle of our meal and not get any service anymore. So I was disappointed in that. But I qualify myself in saying I'm an addict, and that means something to me. When I say that I'm an addict, that means that I have some acceptance of the fact that I have a disease, and that today that entails certain behaviors. I go to meetings. I talk to recovering addicts. I don't use. I don't go places where people use. That's a very strong qualifier. I don't have to be anything else but an addict today to know that I fit in with each and every person that I meet at meetings. And that's a gift, because for so long when I was using, I never fit in anywhere. I felt like the world was against me. I felt like there was no hope. And it's strange, because I grew up in a family where there was apparently good things. I had a church. We had a house. We had things. It seemed to me that it was a classic upbringing. But from the time I started using, somewhere around the age of 10, and to the day I got clean, which was November 4th, 1984, no, November 6th, 1984, the disease had truly taken a strong grip on my life. And for people who come into recovery at a immature age, I can only say that we pay the same price whether we're 15 or 105. Each day that you're out there using may be your last. And the worst thing that anyone does by the age of 15, it feels just as bad as something that someone may do when they're 35 or 45 or 55. And when I came to recovery for the first time, it was through a forced treatment center. The police dragged me off, kicking and screaming, to an inpatient rehab when you could go to rehab for 60 days back in the 80s. And I did that, and I went on to a halfway house against my will for 6 months. And at the end of my treatment, you know, I had almost 9 months clean and still had no real idea of what NA was. I had no real idea that I even wanted to stay clean. What I did know is that my parents, particularly my father, would literally tear me in half if I wasted all of this money and effort that had gone in to treatment. And I was scared into recovery in the beginning. And that may be similar to what other people have experienced. I knew that using had a lot of consequences, and I had been taught about the effects of using, but I didn't know anything about the disease of addiction even after 9 months abstinent. What I did get out of my treatment experience was a connection with meetings, and I came regularly to meetings, and that's something that's never stopped. Perhaps some of you know people that drift away from meetings or never come back, or they go for 5 years and then you don't see them anymore. I'm grateful to God that I'm not that type of recovering addict, because the meetings for me are sometimes the only fabric that holds this addict's mind together. And I hear people say, well, it's easy to look like recovery and act like recovery for an hour in a meeting. Well, I thank God for that moment of focus, because I don't have that ease around the clock the rest of the time during the day. I was too young, too smart, too cool. I had a lot of denial about my disease of addiction. I didn't have any grasp on powerlessness, any grasp on this disease of addiction. What is it? For me, understanding a chronic condition, you know, I got busted 3 times. I'm in treatment. You know, that's hardly chronic. I was more concerned about finding a way around the consequences than I was about staying in meetings, getting clean, and working a program of recovery. I had a few sponsors in the beginning who were basically rides to meetings. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't do anything. I didn't do any step work for many years, actually, after those first days when I stopped using. I got clean in Illinois, and at that time there was no NA in my community. And it took a move to Kalamazoo, Michigan to really develop my desire to stop using and my desire to become a recovering addict, to want to work a program, to want the benefits that the program has to offer. I moved to Kalamazoo, Michigan in 1986 and went to college. And it was there that I found NA, and it was there that I found a home. People who would tell me things like, we'll love you till you can love yourself. I didn't believe that. You know, they would tell me, keep coming back, it gets better. I felt very lonely and isolated in meetings. I didn't believe it. And lo and behold, I think that I'm an example of someone who has done the bare minimum in recovery, and yet I stand in front of you a miraculous success story of NA. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing. Without NA, I have clear evidence that certainly the direction my life has gone since I've been clean would not have happened. I can't tell you I would have died. I can't tell you I would have lived either, though. What I do know is I would not have had the experiences that I've had in recovery. And there have been some miraculous experiences. One of the greatest gifts that I received today and when Sharita was up here introducing me, she reminded me of how many people I have seen get clean and stay clean. It's a miracle. It's one of the true gifts that I get to see. And I think that's the true gift of clean time. It's not that people get so much cleaner, but that the community around us that grows. And our theme of this retreat convention is we grow with love. Seeing people get clean and stay clean is an amazingly satisfying experience. And for years, as Sharita mentioned, I worked in the field, and I never got to talk to anybody. I don't know how it is in this state, but my employer had boundaries. I couldn't talk to addicts. I couldn't hang out with addicts. I chose not to because of my job. Yeah, but I did get to see people get clean and stay clean. Lots of people. Not quite as many as I saw come and take off and never come back, but I see people in this room who I met in Elkhart 3-4 years ago, since I've been coming down during the riding season, who are clean and staying clean. And growing with love, it's a satisfying thing for me to see people get clean and stay clean. In the process of my recovery, I've had a lot of things happen that lead me to believe that I was powerless over my addiction and that my life had become unmanageable. And I mentioned, I didn't drive a car before I got clean. I didn't lose a wife or family because I didn't have one. But what happened to me was losing my self-respect. Losing, my parents raised me not to lie, cheat, and steal. And by the time I got clean, the very few short months and weeks before that, I was lying and cheating and stealing every day to use. Every day to avoid detection of my use. I was truly living an empty shell of a life. And for me, I thought everyone was doing this. I thought that this was what life was. In my family, using was a reward, You've worked hard, or you've done something, or you have money, this is what you do. You go buy drugs. You use. And I didn't really understand that there was a different way to live. I thought everybody overdosed. I thought everybody got hauled away by the police for peeing on the side of a road. I just thought, bad luck, right? Well, I have yet to see people that aren't addicts have the same kinds of problems that I was having. I don't know of anybody else who got kicked out of school for having dope in their school locker and had to go to treatment. These are not things that happen every day. I don't know people who get up in the middle of the night just for the heck of it to get up and use drugs and go back to sleep. Those are things that lead me to believe that I was an addict, that I had lost control over the use of my drugs, that I was powerless over my addiction. At the end of my using, it really didn't matter how, what, when, where, and it's not nearly as important as the journey afterwards. And as I mentioned, with the stiff kick and help of the police, treatment started my recovery. I think that being powerless over addiction means that I'm also free from addiction. I don't believe that I'm a weak person. I don't believe that any addict is a weak person. I refuse to be a victim in my recovery. Powerlessness frees me. Powerlessness enables me to choose a different path. And I don't like that expression, the disease has control of me, because for me, I refuse to be a victim today. The using is what made me a victim, made me clearly repeat the same mistakes over and over again, make the same bad choices, clouded judgment, blackouts, whatever I was into at that current time. That's where the control and the victimization occurred. And in recovery, by surrendering, which I think is a very loving behavior, to surrender and to grow with love and surrender your control issue or your conflict at that moment, or your struggle with using. Are you done using yet? Some people never ask themselves that question when they come to an NA meeting. And when I was there in treatment, having been hauled off by the police and what I had been through the weeks before that, I did have a sinking feeling in my stomach that I was done with using, that I could not do this successfully, that it would probably lead to the same end. I still wasn't really sure I wanted to stop using, though, and it was a very confusing time for me in my life. Being powerless over addiction, to me, means that I don't have to road test. I don't have to go out and check it out. I can hear through other experiences of people at meetings about relapse. I can listen to the news and see people killed in car accidents and other activities involving the use of drugs, and that I can learn, I can live through the examples of others instead of try to take back the control of use myself. Being powerless means that I come to meetings when I don't necessarily want to, you know. Being powerless means that I come to meetings when I feel any amount of spiritual relapse or any amount of pain, that I continue through the motions of seeking support and relying on other addicts to help me. Those things embody powerlessness to me. I have a joke where I tell people that I have the ego strength of 10 men, and I tend to be, most of the people in my area will tell you that I don't hold many opinions and I'm very easy to get along with. Well, as you might guess, and I think with most addicts, I'm a difficult person to get along with, and powerlessness breeds into my daily affairs. And practicing that surrender, the self-acceptance, is a key in the first step for me. The unmanageability was the easiest thing to see. The powerlessness came later on in my early recovery. And I was scared of what might happen in my family, so I was really moving along in recovery very slowly. I think slower than most people do. I was really avoiding using for the first year. I was still stealing in the first 2 years. And stupid stuff. I mean, I'd go into a store and switch the tags to save 50 cents. I mean, I know nobody else ever done anything like that, But, this is just not a good brain at work. This is a brain affected by the disease of addiction and wanting to have that control over things still, wanting to be a manipulator. And those things took a long time and a lot of pain to change. And I don't think I would have been able to make changes or work through any of that pain if I didn't have some change in my recovery program. And what happened for me was moving on to step 2 and coming to believe in a higher power that can restore me to sanity. It was a freedom to learn that I didn't have to hold the weight of the whole world on my shoulders. I was always a very serious person. Even as a child, I always thought that other people had to listen to me, other people had to do what I say, other people had to basically pay homage to Ron. That was how I lived my life as a using addict. And in recovery, boy, it was like an anvil off my chest when I realized that I don't always have to be perfect. I don't always have to be the cleanest recovering addict at a meeting. I don't always have to be the best citizen in my community. I don't have to do everything perfect because I'm not perfect. Because I have a disease of addiction, and because to recover means to begin to let go of those that false self-reliance, what we call the myth of self-sufficiency, or social acceptability does not equal recovery. Those were things that were difficult for me to understand, and coming to rely on a higher power was the only way that I could break through for those things. And to me now, today, my relationship with God is the most important aspect of my recovery program. Sorry about that. 1999 has been the most difficult year in my recovery. You might think, with clean time it gets better every year. Well, life goes on. And 1999 has been the most difficult year. I've had personal tragedy. I've had all types of occupational tragedy, and this has been a difficult year for me. And I'm at more meetings than I have been in the last few years, and I'm at meetings regularly. Because meetings are my medicine. Meetings are what this addict needs to hold on to recovery. And I don't know about anybody else, but when I stay away from meetings, I get sick. My old behaviors come back. My old thinking comes back. And all of that wanting to have control again comes back. There have been some miraculous events in my recovery too. On my 10th anniversary, I witnessed the birth of my first son. On the day of my 10th anniversary. I was married to a recovering addict in 1991. Together, you're looking at a person who went through teenage years and formative years in recovery. And that may not be all great, but that's what's happened in my life. And I've had the benefits of not having to tear down my life at 20, 25, and 30, which I am today, and I'm grateful for that. And I don't hold back from saying that, because I think that everyone in this room deserves as much recovery as they can get today and be as healthy as they can be. There's no reason to demand anything less in a recovery program. It's important to me that I get the most from my recovery each day. And if I don't, I feel like that relapse is possible. I don't think clean time isolates members from the threat of relapse. I think it may change their perception of how isolated they are. But I've been in situations in 1999 where I have been close to picking up. And thank God that I have tools in recovery to where I can talk to recovering addicts, talk to people that I'm close to work through the problem versus allow the kind of involuntary response of using that occurs. Seeing people get clean is a great thing. And when I first got clean, I immediately gravitated. I wanted to be a substance abuse therapist. I'm going to save the world. I'm going to make it, I'm going to bring recovery to everyone's house and door. I can tell you that no one person changes an addict's mind about using. The power of we is so influential in NA. And what I can't do alone, we can do together. I've talked to hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people, paying me to try to help them to get clean. And it just is not the same thing. I don't see, maybe one or two of those people I see that are still clean out of 6 years in that field. However, people in NA, with the power of we and one addict helping another, are the people that I see staying clean, the people that help me to stay clean. That's a powerful force. Today, I don't work in that particular field, and it's been a growth for me to get away from that, to move on in my recovery, and to recognize that I was still trying to control some by trying to help people recover. Now I'm not going to get clean. I'm going to help other people get clean, and it was a very defocusing element in my recovery. And I'm grateful today that I don't have the burdens of not being able to talk to addicts. An addict can come over to my house today. I can have friendships in the fellowship and not have to worry about my job. I didn't realize how difficult that was. Coming to believe in a higher power to me means that I pray. I was raised with the Catholic Church. I'm not the most stringent Catholic, but I was raised to believe in a God, and that was helpful in pushing forward that reliance on a higher power. When I say that I've come to believe in a higher power, it means that I look within through prayer and meditation for guidance, for direction. I try to not do my will immediately, and I don't know if you can relate to that. Instead of wanting to get up and punch a guy that makes me mad, I do something different. Instead of going into a liquor store and buying beer, I do something different. That's a part of believing in a higher power. Left to my own devices, I'm convinced that I'll get exactly what I had 14 years ago, maybe even worse. That was my best plan. 14 years ago was my best plan. That's what got me here to NA, got me into treatment, got me into trouble. I have no reason to believe that simply because there's been days in between that would change. And in fact, I've demonstrated that it doesn't change through the small periods of temporary insanity that we display to our other fellow recovering addicts. You've all had them, I'm sure. Storm out of a meeting, cuss somebody out, start a huge war in a service meeting. Whatever the issue is, I'm sure that we all have been in contact with those temporary moments of insanity that would have been the beginning of a using binge or whatever before we had NA. Coming to believe in a higher power means that I don't have to be self-centered. I don't have to be self-seeking. I don't have to be the total center of attention wherever I go. Those were very high demands placed on me on a personal level that were killing me. And by having a second step, by believing in a higher power, by sitting back and saying a prayer, meditating, having faith, there's a tremendous amount of freedom. That I can experience sanity, that I can experience recovery today. I really didn't believe for many years that recovery was for me. I just thought I was waiting it out, until I could move out of the house or do something different. And being a teen, that was always a constant lure for me. I'll just move out and I'll do my own thing, and whatever happens, happens. I'm grateful that NA was able to help me help myself. And I'm grateful that NA loved me until I could love myself. The first NA meeting I ever went to in Kalamazoo, and that was the first NA meeting that I ever went to, was in 1986. And there was only one NA meeting in Kalamazoo at that time. Today in Kalamazoo we have over, I want to say 40 meetings a week. We have some facilities where there's 3 meetings in a day. NA has grown in Kalamazoo to a bustling fellowship, probably much like you've experienced here in north central Indiana. And it's amazing to me today to think about what NA was like in Kalamazoo when I first got clean and what it's like now. And in fact, I find myself hung up on that sometimes. Well, if they just did it this way, did it that way, everything would be better. And today, believing in a higher power is recognizing that, I've done service work. I'm not that industrious service worker anymore. People are doing that job. NA is changing shape. And people are still clean. I'm still clean. I don't have to control NA. That's a freedom from coming to believe in a higher power. And I am regularly restored to sanity through the practice of this program. I mentioned that 1999 has been a bad year. Well, we just, at work, we had this lawsuit that was just dropped, and then the very next day, they file in a state level court. I'm ready to pull my hair out, Recovery didn't prepare me for those kinds of things, I thought. I wanted to scream and yell. I wanted to cry. I wanted to have an excuse to use. I wanted to say, oh, this is different. Oh, nobody has this problem. Yeah, nobody else gets sued, right? Yeah. I wanted to create my own perception of reality, and I wanted to use. Oh, I'm horrible. I did this. I caused these problems. Oh boy. This is with, supposedly, 14 years of recovery. And today, without a second step, I'd be using. Because there is that chance to rely on a higher power. There is a chance to use the tools that I've learned through recovery to restore myself to sanity. I have 2 boys, both of which are being raised in a clean household, which is important to me. I can't tell you the changes in my life in recovery since having children. If anybody wants to experience difficulties in recovery, have 2 kids real close together. Do wonders for your spirituality, and your free time, and your money, and your everything else. I wouldn't trade my children or the decisions about my children for anything. I love them dearly, but it has changed my life. When I professed to be an addict, it changed my role. I do things differently. Having kids is like that too, and I didn't realize that before I had kids. People tried to tell me, but I didn't listen. The kids will change your life forever. Oh yeah, right. Kids are great. They're cute. They're fun. No. It's been a very difficult process, and my kids have been healthy and well, and I barely held on to keeping it together at times with my kids. And in the relationships workshops this afternoon, I was struck by the fact that someone said they cherished every, minute with their 3-year-old. And I was thinking to myself, well, you come over to our house and you can have all kinds of minutes with my 3 and 4-year-old free of charge. To me, I'm mad at my kids when I'm not accepting myself. My relationships are negative when I'm not accepting myself. Self-acceptance is the key, I believe, to managing a relationship with anyone else. I'm usually mad at my spouse when there's something about me, how I feel, what I think, what feel I've been wronged or what I didn't get, you know. It's usually a self-centered motivation. Surprise, addicts who have a self-centered, compulsive disease, so they can't share. You know, you can't have it two ways in a household. You know, you can't do it differently once. You know, you can't do something another way. Well, not, you know, my household, that can be a very painful thing. At my own hand, you know, at my own hand, that can be a very painful thing. And it comes from self-acceptance. It comes from me not being okay with me. Those problems start there. And so I'm grateful that I have reliance on a higher power and an ability to work the tools of the program to restore myself to sanity. Because I still, 14 years later, have many opportunities to go insane. Try as I might to put my life in order, there is an abundant resource to act out. You know, I'd love to act out. I'd love to just sit in my garage, work on my motorcycle, ignore the whole world some days. It's not functional. It's not possible. Through NA, I can cope through those things. It's interesting to me how much my work has affected my life and my program. I work with people who are chronically mentally ill and people who on even a good day have half a day compared to what I have. You know, my life is so full compared to the people that I work with. And then I think back about how bankrupt I was when I first got clean and how I was in very much the same position, being unable to help myself, being unable to do for myself. In essence, the police said I couldn't manage my life. They carted me off to a treatment center. In essence, my family said, screw up, you know, or don't screw up or we're not going to let you live here. You know, those were the kinds of positions that I was faced with. And for me, that fits into step 3 in terms of turning the will and life over to the care of God as we understood Him. Because for me, knowing that there's a higher power, it was an awareness and a very key spiritual awakening to let go of the destructive behavior that I had when I would experience tirades of insanity. But to have something on a daily basis, a skill to turn something over, to have a belief in a God and build on that belief in a God into something that I understand and practice turning things over was a huge step for me. I think about all the times now in hindsight that I chose to not turn will over, that I chose to do exactly what I wanted to do. And it's very easy to see the destruction that leads when I chose to not rely on a higher power. Those issues are painful, you know. It's hard for me to say that, you know, 2.5 years clean, I was arrested for shoplifting. You know, I'm supposedly a person that, you know, experienced a miraculous recovery from day one. I think people in my area sometimes often, you know, I hear about all these things that I may have said or done, but no one ever talks to me. And I think that they forget that I was in the same position that any addict is in from day 1 to day 365 or whatever. And the problems that they experience are the same that I have either had experienced, are experiencing, or will experience soon by the way the turn of the world goes. Clean time does not equal recovery. I'm grateful for it. And again, I'm grateful for seeing people get clean. My days add up. You can learn what I've learned in 14 years. You know, come out and have a cup of coffee with me. I'll tell you. Listen to this. I'll tell you. That's what I've learned in 14 years. It works for me. I don't know that I'd advise anybody to do what I've done in recovery. It may not keep you clean. And for me, I have to realize that everything I say or do might have nothing to do with anyone else's recovery. You know, I really need to focus on my own recovery and how I can stay clean today. And that's what's most important. And so when I see people who, meetings are for newcomers, I've heard that from people who get away from meetings. I don't buy it. Meetings aren't, people that don't go to meetings simply don't want to go to meetings anymore. They don't need to rationalize about a facility or a group of people or what's happening there is not recovery. People who don't go to meetings just plain make a decision to not go to meetings. For me, turning my will and my life over to the care of God, as I understand it, means that there's a conscious process of letting go, of surrender, of saying, God, take this. I can't do this. I can't behave this way. If I do this, it is not recovery. I don't want to do this. Making that choice, that distinction between the compulsive, impulsive behavior and a real choice in life is a gift of the third step. A willingness that I don't want to, I want to stop using, I want to stay clean, was a benefit of the third step. Why did I tell my using best friend to take a hike? Well, that comes from the third step, to turn it over and do the things that I need to do the footwork, and let God do the rest. You know, I have a brother who's been a long, addict. He's in prison now. And when he comes over to my house, I love him, but, he don't come over unless he's supervised. He's a dangerous person. And I have to rely on God with that, because my instinct is to help my brother. My instinct is to care for my brother, to try to help out. And that can't be done in this situation. So I try and turn it over. God is helpful to me. God is a source of strength. God is helpful to me because it means that I don't have to take total liability, total responsibility for what happens. Some things just happen. Bad things happen in life. Bad things happen to me, and I'm sure that each and every one of you has had bad things happen to you. And for me, turning over is freedom. That surrender step is freedom. I'm not going to go on a real long diatribe on all the steps, but I did want to talk about those three, because I know in my recovery, without the honesty of the first step, the open-mindedness of the second step, and the willingness to want to stay clean, recovery was not possible. And I've had a few sponsees, and I've seen people come into recovery and they think it's going to be a bolt of lightning, it's going to change everything in their life, and they're going to stay clean forever. That's not my experience. My experience is that recovery takes work, a lot of it. It's hard. It's painful. Living life on life's terms is something I never wanted to do. My normal is to use. To this day, I have lost a compulsive desire, that gut-wrenching feeling to use. But every so often I have the thought of using. It hasn't gone away. And again, people in NA are there to help me and support me. One of the things that's nice about your Elkhart meeting is that in Kalamazoo, everybody clamors to talk. You can't get a word in edgewise. Everybody will spit out. There'll be a chest-to-chest match of who's going to talk next. And people will butt in with, I'm this, I'm that, I'm an addict, and try to get their name in. And Elkhart has a real sense of serenity for me, to be in the meeting and have silence, and to have people think about calmness. And that's the overwhelming impression I've had from those meetings at Elkhart. It's been a great gift in my recovery to come out of area to a meeting out of my area, to where I know what I say is not going to be a big problem. To know that what I say is not going to be political, because in NA we get political sometimes, between groups and through members. And I don't know why that happens, but it does. And it's a gift to be able to come and be loved and be cared for by total strangers in NA, who are no longer strangers, because it's been 3.5, 4 years, I think, since we've been riding down the summer to the Elkhart meeting. 10 years since I met Jennifer. And today I have a home no matter where I go to, but I certainly have a home here in the North Central area. I'm really grateful to have had a chance to share, and thank you.